Hey guys, good morning, good morning. It's about 0900 right now. While we do have limited viewership at this point in time, it's all right, not a big deal. What we're going to do is we're going to press on with the stream just to make sure that individuals who are we're going to watch the video later on can see the content afterwards. So once again, good morning. It's a wonderful Tuesday, April 14th, and my name is Technical Sergeant Trina. I am a Group MTL with the Special Warfare Training Support Squadron Special Warfare Training Group. So today we're going to talk about an Airmanship 200 concept. Once again, it's going to be on trust. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Technical Sergeant Trina. I've been an MTL for the last 3 years, specifically stationed with the Special Warfare Training Group over at Lackland Air Force Base on the now Chapman Annex. I was first with the 350th Training Squadron, and they train all of the individuals for special warfare. So pararescue, tactical air control party, special reconnaissance, and combat control. And I did the line MTL work for about 2 years or 2 years-ish. Moved from there to initiate special warfare as Airman Transition Assistance flights for members who are reclassifying into other positions or moving on to a civilian career. And then I got pulled up to be a group MTL for the special warfare community. And what we're going to do today is we're going to go over Airmanship 200. But first, let's answer some questions that we had from the previous week. One specific question that was asked last week was about prior service members who are retraining and if Air Force is going to continue to do that during this COVID-19 epidemic. Well, the answer to that question is kind of a tricky one, right? Right now, the Air Force says that training is mission essential. And Sergeant Miller and myself kind of went over that last week. If you want to see that video, go ahead and go to the videos from my personal account, which is Christopher Trina, and you can view the previous week's video and you can go over why training is mission essential. Other than that, for retraining, I'm going to need your specific retraining previous to this whole entire epidemic had already been backed up due to just the availability of personnel handling the retraining packages through AFPC. So what you're going to have to do is, for your specific scenario, you're going to have to go ahead and look at AFPC's requirements or call up AFPC. If you can, please get a Master Sergeant or above to make that phone call, and they can get a specific information on your situation, because everybody's situation is different. The way that they handle all those packages is different depending on the AFSC. So please go ahead and go up through your chain of command, go get to your soonest available Master Sergeant, and then have them call AFPC, and that individual can hopefully get you some answers, that instead of me trying to tell you something that really I can't get you any valuable information for your specific situation. So with that, let's go over what Airmanship 200 is again. So before we just jump into the topic, which today is trust, Airmanship 200 is a program designed for continued professional development after basic training. So when you're in basic training, you learn all of the basics like marching, customs and courtesies, and just the general aspect of being in the military, right? But Airmanship, and that's called Airmanship 100. Airmanship 200 is a continuation of that, where you're learning more about heritage and history. You continue to learn about customs and courtesies. You continue to learn about standards and discipline. But now you're learning more about the reasons why, right? You're trying to learn about the Air Force reasons why, and then you're trying to find out about your reasons why. And from there, you move forward and develop a sense of belonging and a sense of development for your career. As I'm looking at the stream right now, I can see, like, sometimes for this blue screen, it looks a little bit crazy because the screen is not too far off from the color of my eye, so it looks a little bit distorted right now. That's funny. It's crazy. All right. So that's why we're doing Airmanship 200. It's so that you can find your why, hopefully a little bit sooner than you would. And that'll help keep you motivated in your career. It'll help push you professionally, and it'll help push you as an individual and grow as an individual. So with today's lesson about being trust, we can push a little bit forward. What we're going to do is, I got 3 videos that we're going to watch. One of which is just a PACE enlisted video. And what PACE is the Profession of Arms Center. And that's like a professional development center that the Air Force has. And they create videos and content for NCOs like myself to use to help teach members professional development. With that, we're going to start with the PACE enlisted video. I just saw this video yesterday, and it's a good one. It really helped me. I mean, it helps you feel a lot more pride in how the Air Force conducts their enlisted and officer force, and then it helps you really see the value of what the Air Force is trying to push out and why we have that enlisted force. So while we're watching the video, please, for those of you who are in chat right now, go ahead and speak up in chat. Tell me what you like about the video. As we progress through this stream, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have some questions that are going to pop up on stream over here. And if you can, just answer those questions in chat, and we'll try and interact as much as possible. If not, I'm just going to go ahead and answer the questions with how I feel or how I felt as an airman, and we'll discuss it that way. So first, let's head to the video. We'll go to the profession of arms, the enlisted video, and let me go to display 1 with broadcaster. There we go. All right, guys.
There was nobody better than us. The problem was just about everybody outranked us. And the really sad thing is we weren't even airmen yet. We started as Army, but we were different. The road in front of us was a runway. We were all about the future. We were young, so the future most of us were concerned about was our own. That's how it is when you start out. What's next for me? How do I get promoted? Where am I going? What do I do? What the Air Force wants you to do is lead. If you're an Airman Basic, lead yourself. From Airman all the way up to Chief. Look at that insignia on your uniform. Those aren't stripes and chevrons. They're wings to learn with, arrows to keep you pointed in the right direction, and stars to reach for. Aim high. If you're doing it right, you're constantly becoming a better version of you. The funny thing is, the better you get, the more you learn about yourself, the more you find out it's not about you. Rank is not a reward, it's a challenge. Those marks don't show how far you've come. They show how many more airmen you get to take with you. Wingmen, leaders, warriors. That's who we are. A lot of people try to tell civilians that being in the Air Force is a lot like a job in the real world. The world doesn't get any more real than this. We took an oath to our country. We're airmen. You might be a logistics expert in the Air Force, but you're an airman first. You're not just an intelligence analyst, you're an airman. You're not working at a place called the Air Force while you get a degree. You are an airman. Doesn't matter if you're an A1C, Tech Sergeant, or Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force. We're airmen. We lead the way by showing the way. We earn respect because we've been there. And when we're suddenly supervisors, we take care of our people because we've been there. Officers are required to be leaders. Enlisted are expected to be leaders. There are plenty of people who outrank us, but there is nobody better than us. We are the future of this Air Force, and the future is where we'll make history. Aim high, Airmen.
Yeah, one of my, so when I watched it yesterday, I was looking at that, I was watching the videos, and that line that hit me right there the most was, officers are required, but enlisted are expected. I think that's pretty telling, right? So when the Air Force hires an officer, right, or when they take an officer in, they train them, they put them in leadership positions specifically so that they can provide the Air Force's kind of leadership. As an enlisted personnel, you're expected to be a leader. Right? You have to be developed as such. You have to practice it. You have to move forward. It's just, I feel like there's a big difference between being required to do something and then just having the expectation that you will. Right? Being required means there's a lot of repercussions in the event that you don't provide that type of leadership that the Air Force, the approved type of leadership the Air Force wants. Right? Being expected is that development that you get from the technical training all the way up to Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force. And I love how they go over the stripes. Well, a lot of our motivation comes from the funds that we're going to get, right? Your basic allotment, your pay, all that good stuff. But those stripes mean increased responsibility. And that increased responsibility means that you develop airmen, that you help take people with you as you move up through the ranks, and you help them take your place as you move forward. So it's a great representation, I feel like, that lets you know and helps you understand rank structure and professional of arms and all that good stuff that says, like, with more rank comes more responsibility, comes helping develop your fellow airmen, and ensures that you're not just getting more money. It's not just an additional job that you have to do. It's not just additional leadership. It's taking care of your people. So I think that's pretty cool about how they made that video and went forward. All right, so as we move forward, so this we're going to go ahead and go over this boot stop right here, and then after that we'll move into another video, which is the 300 video that they have designed for this program. But let's begin with the boot stomp. The leaders who work most effectively, it seems to me, never say I, and that's not because they have trained themselves not to say I. They don't think I, they think we, they think team. They understand their job to be to make the team function. They accept responsibility and don't sidestep, but we gets the credit. This is what creates trust, what enables you to get the task done. Peter Drucker, author of Managing the Future. So that's cool. I mean, that's exactly what we think in the military, right? There is no I. I should always be replaceable. I should always have a member below me that can fulfill my position. I should always have members above me that I'm looking to fulfill, right? That's the idea about the military. That's why we have retirements and there's term limits and all that good stuff, right? Somebody who's a specific rank can only be in the military for a specific amount of time. There has to be that move forward or that move on. And because of that, there's always that churn in the military, in this big machine that we call the Air Force, where you move up in rank and people move up in rank and take additional responsibilities and bring innovation and bring a whole new type of leadership to that unit, that shop, that position, that AFSC, and help develop the Air Force as we move forward. So that's awesome. All right, let's move back. We're going to go and now that we've kind of watched that, anybody who's in chat right now, okay, we got a few more people in chat. Feel free to chime in, add your opinions, let me know what you think as we go through the stream. What I'm going to do is I'm going to answer the questions to the best of my ability, and then please in chat answer the questions to the best of your ability as we go through. So let's start with this 300 video now. All right.
This is where we hold them. This is where we fight! This is where they die! And these shields, boys! Remember this day, men, for it will be yours for all time.
Spartans! Lay down your weapons!
Oh man, I'm real serious with those Spartans right now.
Come and get them!
I just kind of imagine the actors going through this, right? Just screaming into the lens of the camera. All right. So the question that we're talking about in regards to this one, right? Let's see. Where's the 300 stuff? All right, let's go over here. And we'll look at question 1. Do you feel that your personal experiences so far in the Air Force orient you towards distrusting your peers? So, hey, we're going to talk about that 300 real quick. And for those of you who are in chat, guys, please help me out answer that question, and then we can discuss it. I'll answer it for myself, and we'll move forward. So for the 300 thing, right, with the shield or on the shield, really what they're talking about is Roman warriors or the 300 warriors, those guys, what they had to do is they all had to work together as a team. So all their shields were oriented in a way that when they would overlap each other. So any one individual who didn't do their part could potentially catastrophically affect the whole entire group. So those 300 individuals were some of the best warriors at the time, right? And because they all worked together as a team, they all held their shields appropriately, they all did what each person held their portion of the responsibility for the whole entire battle, they were able to do a lot more than they normally would have. So what Airmanship 200 says we should go over is training in pairs and in groups emphasizes the bond and trust with their brothers in battle. Furthermore, the entire group was held accountable for the errors or underperformance of any single person in their team to emphasize interdependence. And there was a reason for that. Spartan foot soldiers held their shields in a way that defended half of oneself and half of the soldier to his left at the battlefront, creating a continuous wall of shields. If this wall broke, the whole army was doomed, and not surprisingly, dropping the shield became synonymous with treachery in Sparta. Even the mother's farewell to her son before he went to battle included a severe message that her son had to return either carrying his shield, victorious, or on the shield, dead. Personal superiority, strength, and bravery were valued only as far as it didn't jeopardize the coherence of the team. They fought and died as one to the very last man. So, think about that in the military aspect or the Air Force aspect, right? You got to think about the big picture. And it's really hard to see as an airman in training, or even as when you get to your first duty location as an A1C, Airman Basic, Airman, A1C, all that good stuff. It's really difficult to see how you fit into the large cog of the military, how you are this gear that helps this whole machine go. And what I mean by that is, so I'll use my career field. I'm a firefighter outside of this whole entire MTL gig. And it's really difficult to see sometimes how I affect the mission, right? So my job is to be present and be ready in the event that there's an emergency or some catastrophic event that happens, and I'm supposed to go over there and try to mitigate that to the best of my ability, which means I save life, property, and the environment. Those are in that order, essentially, right? I ensure that people don't die. I make sure the property that we have is saved to the best of my ability, and then I make sure that the environment is saved to the best of my ability. And because of that, you got to think about it this way. In the event that there's an emergency, and I'm required, the mitigation efforts that I put forward, which means I either put out the fire, I help somebody medically, right? I perform some emergency medical response, and I help provide some level of care that helps us get back to the mission. And because of that, and because I'm able to do that, mission success is higher. And you got to think about that in every aspect of all AFSCs as we push forward, right? Because the airman over there at the chow hall working in services, right? He is serving the whole entire base populace fuel, right? If you look a lot about history and the way World War II was won and the other wars that have happened, you'll see that there's a huge underlying study about how a lot of wars are won on calorie count. Right, so just in services alone, that airman who goes over there and provides meals and does everything that's required to make sure that the base populace has all the required nutrients and hydration and everything that they need to push the mission forward. Like in a home station requirement, a lot of people take that for granted, right? In the deployed environment, your meals mean a lot. I'm telling you right now, your meals mean a lot. And having that calorie count and having those and not feeling hungry and doing all that good stuff helps you focus on the mission. And that's just one small thing that we take for granted. There's all these other career fields that go through the Air Force. And when we talk about security forces, right? They're out there ensuring that the perimeter of the base, everything, people who enter onto the base are the right people. They aren't, they don't have the ill intentions that our enemies have, right? They've been vetted through a system. They come onto the base and they provide the services that are required that we ask for. And without those members, we'd have a lot of worries. So a lot of this military system is designed about ensuring that you are capable of focusing on the mission without having these outside worries. That's one of the reasons why we have the benefits that we have, right? That's one of the reasons why we have the medical benefits that we have, or the educational benefits that we have. One, for professional development. Two, to ensure that you can focus on the mission, right? So it's a huge benefit that we have in the military to be able to move forward with that. So let's look at this question right here. Do you feel that your personal experiences so far in the Air Force orient you towards trusting your peers? For me, let's see. As an airman, it was difficult for me. I'm not gonna lie, as an airman, to trust my peers. Right? You have to transition from this civilian life that you normally have. Like when I joined the military in 2009, and I had to make a huge transition from civilian life to military life. And then a lot of people early on in their careers, I don't say a lot of people, but there's a good portion of you guys who decide to take a relationship on with that, right? So that means that you guys are going from this huge transition from civilian life to military life, and then you're also bringing in maybe a spouse or a girlfriend to kind of follow you along with that. So you're making huge strides in your personal life that are very difficult. And you're doing it all at once in this really short period of time, right? So for me, I got married while I was in tech school, right? It was to my high school sweetheart. She's absolutely amazing. That was a big transition from single life to married life, and then from civilian life to military life, and then taken away from your, normal support structure all the way to your first duty location. For me, it was Beale Air Force Base in Northern California. Now, when you think about that, trusting your peers, I mean, you're thrown in with people from all over the world, all over the country, right? And immediately, because they have U.S. Air Force on their chest, you're expected to trust them to some extent, right? And it was difficult for me. I'm not going to lie. But the good thing about that is I had peers and I had supervisors that immediately took me in and attempted to teach me the Air Force way. And that's what I hope you guys do, is really open your hearts and minds to how the Air Force does things, right? Some of us had experience. So I had experience in firefighting previous to coming into the military. And because of that, I was really set on, I know what I'm doing, but I didn't know the Air Force way. And while we learn in tactical training sort of like the basics of your AFSC, in basic training you learn the basics of being in the military, right? And in the Air Force. And then in technical training you learn the basics of your job. And then you go over to your first duty location, you do something called career developmental courses, CDCs. You do JQS, which is job qualification standards. You learn a whole bunch of stuff like that. And that's where you learn from your peers and your supervisors. And you test on that information, and it's all annotated in your training record so that you can progress through your career. And the Air Force knows that you can do your job to the level that you're supposed to do it. All right? So you have to trust your peers. But they also earn your trust, and you earn their trust as you guys progress through your training and you learn the job there and you keep an open mind. So for me, it was difficult to trust my peers. But as I got to my first duty location, I started talking to my leadership. I saw that they were really taking care of me and they were taking care of my family. And a lot of people have different experiences, I understand. But if you go in there with an open mind and you go in there trusting in the Air Force system that says that these individuals are there to take care of you, your leaders, your supervisors, and that doesn't mean that they're infallible, right? That doesn't mean that they're not going to, that as a supervisor, as a technical sergeant, as a staff sergeant, as a senior airman, that I'm not going to make a mistake. There's plenty of times where I've made mistakes in those positions that have affected other members, right? To be a good leader, I would hope that I'd recognize those things, learn from them, and make changes in the future. And that doesn't change the fact that they affected other individuals, right? So that's where me as a supervisor, when I talk to my airmen, I say, hey, look, all right, this isn't necessarily the outcome that I wanted. I expected this outcome when I made this decision, and I understand it affected you in whatever way. Let's talk about it. Let's figure out what we can do to move forward. And so I can be a better supervisor, you can be a better airman, and then we learn from this as we progress through our careers, right? So, yes, I think it's difficult to orient you towards trusting your peers. It's very difficult to do that, especially in an environment where you're ripped away from your normal family life and the family support that you have, and you're making these huge transitions in your life, right, from civilian to military and all that good stuff. But I think because we have U.S. Air Force on our chest, we can go ahead and say, hey, yeah, that guy next to me, I can trust him. He's been through some of the same cultural effects, some of the same stuff that I've been through. He's been through basic training. He more or less has the same delayed entry program requirements that I went through, all that good stuff. He has a recruiter. He's been through a lot of the same experiences that I've been through. And while there's still a lot more to learn from him, I can trust him to some extent for sure, right? Cool. And let's go to question 2. When a safe space is created to discuss your story and or experiences, how likely are you to share with or open up to your fellow airmen? 1 to 5 scale. 1 will not share, 5 very likely to share. Well, hey guys, for those of you in chat, please feel free to answer that question. I just put a 1 through a 5, it doesn't matter. Whatever you guys want to do to just participate. So I think as an airman, it was, I don't know, I'm kind of out there and out in the open already, right? 1, I'm a military training leader, so I've been in front of groups of people, large groups of people, and I feel fairly comfortable doing that. 2, I'm doing the stream, right? And I'm sharing sort of my Air Force story with everyone out in internet land, right? So I would think that I'm pretty comfortable with this. I'm likely to share, especially now as a tech sergeant, and I've been through a lot of the system. I got 10 years of military experience. Actually, next month in May, I'll have 11 years. So I'm willing to share my experiences and what I've learned from the military and the mistakes that I've made in the military in hopes that you, airmen at whatever tech school, can move forward and learn from the stuff that I've got going on. Now you got to think about this too. I'll kind of move away from that question because it's really like a 1 through 5. You got to think about this too. Is a lot of you guys are gonna have leaders in the military that you may or may not trust. We're talking about trust here, right? And those know that your first supervisor. A lot of my first supervisors were brand new staff sergeants. They were still learning how to be a staff sergeant. While you go through this military career, while you go through the enlisted rank structure, you have different responsibilities. And as an NCO, as a senior airman, you're kind of training to be an NCO, right? You're trying to hone your leadership skills and you're trying to figure out how you're going to be an NCO and lead airman. Now, as a brand new staff sergeant, you've got to implement those things. And you're going to make mistakes like we talked about previously. So it's really difficult on your airmen when you do make those mistakes. But as an airman, you should still trust your leadership, even if there's mistakes made. And the reason why I say that is because they're developing as NCOs, and you're developing as an airman, and someday you're going to be in that position. So what I want you to think about, and like we've talked about in the previous segments, we talked about integrity, we talked about courage. Feel free to go back and look at those videos. As we go through that, you want to be the airman, you want to attempt to be the airman that you would want to lead as an NCO. So think about that. When you go through your military career, and someday you'll be an NCO in E4, E5, you'll be an NCO E5, E6, and you'll have airmen. And think about how you are as an airman now. Now, there's things that you don't care about, right? There's military standards and customs courtesies and things like that you right now are thinking, yeah, why do we do that, right? Why do we care about the color hat that we wear when wearing PT gear? I mean, it's cold outside. Just let me wear a beanie and roll out, right? There's going to be things that you maybe find arbitrary that we want you to adhere to, right? We want you to think about standards, customs, and courtesies. We want you to think about following these methods, these requirements. And then also, these requirements are going to change. They've changed a ton in my 10 years, right? So as they change, we want you to adapt. And adapting it doesn't mean that when all these new requirements come out, you complain and cry about them. Or when your leadership wants you to focus on something that maybe isn't incredibly valuable to you, you still focus on it. You don't do it flippantly. You actually put some effort into it. You provide a level of service that's consistent with your work ethic, that's consistent with your discipline, with your motivation, with your drive to move forward in your military career and in your personal life. Now, if you do that, then if you can do that as an airman, you can expect that from your airman as an NCO. And it'll be easier on you, and it'll be easier on your airmen. So when something like that, when your leadership comes to you and asks you to do something, you have to have that trust in leadership to say, hey, look, I need you to be I want you to be the airman that you expect to lead as an NCO. All right, we got CW Peach. It says 3-4, depending on who it is and the topic. All right, thanks, Peach. Appreciate that. That's good stuff. And sharing your story, of course. All right, let's move on to question 3, all right? And this is another 1 through 5. Now, how important is it to your success in the Air Force to be able to trust your peers, a scale of 1 through 5? Jay says 3, depending on the topic of the experience. Of course, yeah. So when we think about our Air Force story, right, for me, my Air Force story is going to be sort of how I came into the Air Force, and then on top of that, there's 2 things that when you think about it, that I've heard people discuss in my military career, right? There's that day that you joined the military, and for me, it was 2009, May 19th, 2009, when I joined the military. And then there's the day when that's when I joined the Air Force. There's the day when the Air Force joins you. All right? That's when your ideals, your personal drive, and your motivations go in line with the Air Force. So for me, I always use this as a stepping stone. When I first enlisted, I was like, okay, look, I can't get a job. I had firefighting experience previously. I had a whole bunch of firefighting certifications. I said, the Air Force is going to be my stepping stone to getting a civilian job in the firefighting realm. I joined. I went to Beale Air Force Base. From there, I did pretty well and became a captain within 3 years. So a captain of a truck, which is essentially like a crew chief. We have different methods. In the civilian world, they call it a captain. So I was a crew chief, and that's pretty quick. That was me being responsible for 4 other individuals. And in the civilian world, that does not happen very quickly at all. Like that's pretty quick. 3 to 4 years, you're captain of a truck. You're responsible for a whole entire vehicle, which is what the vehicle that I had was around $700,000. And then on top of that, 4 other souls. Like that's a lot of responsibility for a brand new NCO. It's quick to make those things happen. But I had to have trust in my leadership, and they had to have trust in me so that I could provide that level of service, right? And then as I was going through that, I was like, wow. I mean, look at this. Look at the level of responsibility they placed on me so early on in my career. They must really trust me. And if they do, I mean, they're supporting me and the needs that I have. Oh, this looks crazy. I'm going to take those off. They're supporting me in the needs that I have personally. And they're supporting my educational needs. They're ensuring that my family has medical and all that good stuff, which I'm telling you right now, we took advantage of greatly. And then on top of that, I'm given all this responsibility. I mean, this Air Force thing is really working out well for me. And even then, I didn't know about it. I went and applied for, an instructor position at the Youth Safety Academy in Germany, and I was selected for that, and that was insane to me too. This level of responsibility I was given at the time to train the rest of the force for deployment courses or for technical rescue, confined space, hazmat, all this other stuff that I had to do there. Man, we had like 8 trucks or something like that too, that we had to ensure that were maintained, that were tested, that were certified, that we could continue to do life safety training on. Well, there was a lot of trust there that the Air Force put in me and my leadership put in me so that I could provide a level of service for the military that would help provide mission success. That's impressive. It's impressive to have that so early on in career. And then as we push forward and those personal relationships developed with my peers and peers, subordinates, and leaders, they started to support me in the goals that I had. And what I mean by that is not just my professional goals and your personal goals. And as I was supported, as my leadership knew more about me, I got my supervisor from my time at the Youth Safety Fire Academy in Germany. He just called me the other day, And he called me to see how I was doing, see how things were going on. And this is sort of out of the blue. He's stationed over in Italy. His whole family on lockdown, restriction of movement, all that good stuff going on because of the pandemic over there. He's got a ton of stuff to worry about. He's a master sergeant at the department over there, running a whole bunch of stuff because the Air Force has a lot of trust in him as well. And he still takes the time out of his day to give me a call from Italy, worried about the time, all time change and everything. He's got kids, wife, school, all of his job stuff, and he still takes the time to give me a call and say, hey, how's it going, Trina? How you doing? How's life? I mean, right there alone is a huge step. That is a huge example, of the type of leadership that we have in the military and the systems that we've developed that make sure that people not only do they care about the mission, and that is the primary goal, right, is the mission, but they care about you. And it's hard to feel that right in the beginning as an A1C or as a new airman, because you kind of feel like you're just caught up. You don't have a lot of say, or people aren't necessarily listening to you as much as you'd like them to listen to you. But really, you're learning this system. You're still learning the system. You're still learning how things work. You're still trying to figure out and transition from your civilian life to your military life. And with that, you earn more trust as you go through. You really do. Right? There's the inherent trust that you have right when you meet somebody because they wear the uniform and they have U.S. Air Force on their chest. But then as you build those professional relationships, as you go up in rank, there's more expected of you. All right, here's another comment from Jay. It says, 5, without trusting the people around you, everything could go wrong during the mission and people could get hurt or worse. Absolutely. So my example, firefighting, is the one that I know the best, right? If I can't trust the individual next to me, one of the things that was big for me is I wanted to make sure all my guys, everybody that I worked with was trained and physically fit. Because in the event that we go into a house fire or we have some other situation that happens and something happens to me, I need my fellow firefighters, my fellow airmen, to be able to pull me out. And I'm like 170 pounds, and there's about 60 to 70 pounds of gear attached to me. So this guy has to have his weight, his gear, and then also if for some reason I'm incapacitated, pick me up and pull me out. I mean, there's a huge... I had to be physically fit enough to ensure that I could do that same job for any one of my airmen. I mean, that right there is a lot of personal responsibility. So, you're right, Jay. If you don't have trust in your peers, I mean, that can affect how you complete the mission. And it could affect maybe your level of commitment to the mission, which means that the mission could suffer, right? Hey, thanks for your contributions, Peach and Jay. Appreciate it. Okay, let's move forward. Let's put this back on and remove that. All right, so trust. As we move forward, so we got a couple questions here. We'll go back to the display actually while we do this. And remove the slideshow. Why did we have... Oh, we read stories about junior enlisted airmen. So this is going to go off of... In this facilitated discussion, it brings up a whole bunch of situations or portraits of courage. And as much as I'd like to read to you guys, I'm not sure that would be the right move. So we'll see what we're gonna move forward, and we'll go through some of the questions and see what we can answer. What is possible when you can trust your peers? So what do you guys think is possible when you can trust your peers? So I'll tell you right now. For me, when you can trust your peers, that's a whole bunch of support that can help ensure that you, as an airman, are successful in the endeavors that you take, right? So in the position that I have now, I had a lot of influence over many different facets of the pipeline of airmen standards, customs, courtesies, in making policy and literally authoring policy. And as a technical sergeant in the Air Force, I mean, I wasn't sure if I'd be doing that. as an airman, I didn't expect a tech sergeant in the Air Force to be the one that's creating policy. And from creating policy, that's standards, right, that people have to adhere to as they move forward through their pipeline or careers. So, I mean, that is a big deal, in my opinion. And because of that, my peers, they have to trust that the policies that I'm making aren't flippant, stupid, or they have to trust that the policies that I'm making add value, right? So, and in turn, I have to trust that my peers are going to adhere to those policies to the best of their ability. And those policies are what help drive the mission forward, what helps standardize what we do to make sure that we streamline what we're doing to provide better efficiency so that we don't have to have as much manpower or so on and so forth. It gives time back to my military training leaders right now so that they can focus on the airmen instead of focusing on processes or whatever else that takes away from their ability to interact with you as the trainee. And that way we can help you get through whatever struggles that are going on in your life, whether that be you attending another tech training, you're attending your next school, you getting to your first duty location, taking leave, dealing with family stuff, anything that's going on. So for my airmen that are in chat, maybe Peach or Jay, whoever's going to participate, no big deal. What is possible when you trust your peers? Mission success is possible, that's for sure. But on top of that, right now, trusting my peers and being able to complete my workload has allowed me to do education, has allowed me to take this group MTL position because my peers trusted me when I was down in the dormitories. I was able to shine. They supported me in the endeavors that I took. I was able to be selected for a group MTL position. I mean, that's definitely not just Sergeant Trina and doing Sergeant Trina things. That's me and my peers and supporting each other to make sure that we're successful. I mean, when you trust your peers, you don't have to second guess their actions. You don't have to go back and check if ensuring that bolt was tightened for that aircraft, right? I don't have to go back and check to make sure that the personnel that I have in the back of the truck as a firefighter are trained to the levels that I want to put them in. I know that they are. And because of that, I can make split-second decisions that can affect people's lives. All right, next question. What happens when trust is broken? Ooh. Now, I mean, for those of you in chat, please participate as much as you can with that one. What happens when trust is broken? So the anticipated response is, you can't do anything, people do not want to be on the team, all that good stuff. Yeah, when trust is broken, it really hurts the ability, it hurts communication, it hurts, a lot of times when trust is broken, that means that it could hurt someone's integrity, it could hurt your leadership's ability to ensure that the position that you're in can be accomplished appropriately, right? And if they can't trust in you to accomplish the mission that they give you, now they have to look at either taking other personnel from somewhere else to put in your position or support you with, and that provides a huge strain on the unit. When trust is broken for me, I got to look at a few things. And I'll tell you right now, being a line MTL, I've had plenty of airmen come up to me and tell me maybe they were, as they're practicing their leadership skills, as they're practicing their followership skills, and continuing to learn how to be in the military and do things, they didn't necessarily completely adhere to all of our core values, right? And because of that, they might have told me something that would get them out of trouble instead of just taking responsibility for the problem that was caused. Now, for me, I know that you're still being developed as an airman. I know that. And because of that, there's a lot of leeway with that. So when trust is broken, I'd say for those who are below me as subordinates, it's a chance for me to develop you. All right? But there's only so much development. You got to want it too, right? So to the best of my ability, I'm going to try and lead you and help you become a better airman, a better person, and reach your goals. I'm going to do that to the best of my ability. But with that, if you don't accept that, that's rough. That's hard. Then we have an impasse, right? You have to be able to trust me, and I have to be able to trust you. And I can give you chances, and I can do whatever I can to help develop you. But if you don't accept that, it's difficult. But know that there's a whole bunch of different types of leadership styles, right? So something that might work for me and one of my troops will not work for me and another one of my troops. That's true. So as a leader, you have to be adaptable. All right, so we got Peach, conflict. People are no longer open with their leadership and peers. Personal issues are not brought to light, which affect the mission as well. Absolutely. Peach, I completely agree with you. People aren't, I don't want to say people are no longer open with their leadership. I think it just depends where you're at and how much trust you have with your leadership. So what I would hope that you would do as an airman or as an enlisted member as you're going through the force is really err on the side of trusting your leadership. Because a lot of times they know stuff that you don't. It's just the truth. And even with that, err on the side of making sure that they have your best interests at heart. I've seen a lot, especially in the position that I have right now, a lot of people think that the stuff that the MTLs or the Air Force implements might be a little bit arbitrary, but it's not. Err on the side of trusting your leadership. And that will help you personally, and it will help you view things in a different way. Because you'll start saying, okay, so why does the leadership care? Why do they care that I don't wear my hat indoors? Right? Why do they care that I don't put my beanie on before I'm walking out of my dorm room? Well, we care because we want to know how well you can adhere to standards, customs, courtesies. Because when I give you an order out in the battlefield, or when I give you an order out there that is a split-second decision, I need to know that you're going to follow it. Right? And then I need to know how well you can adapt, period. The military is going to have a whole bunch of changing things, changing regulations, changing standards, changing uniforms. This is like the third uniform that I've worn in my 10 years in the military. We had BDUs, ABUs, and now we got OCPs, right? And even when you deploy, you can deploy with different uniforms and stuff like that. So there's a ton of different changing standards, and it's going to happen all the time. Now, you can be frustrated about those changing standards. If you're like, why don't we just go to one uniform? Come on, guys. Or you can say, hey, look, maybe the Air Force is ensuring that we have enough training or experiences with adapting so that we can go, so that when we need to adapt quickly, we can, right? All right, and Jay says, trusting your peers allows you not to have any worry about if everyone else is doing their job right and focus a bit more on whatever you're doing a bit more. Absolutely, Jay. You want to be able to focus on your mission, and if you're worried about whatever your peers are doing next to you, or your leadership, the decisions your leadership is making, or even the decisions your subordinates are making, if you're worried about that, you can't necessarily focus on the mission at hand. All right, so what happens if trust is broken? It creates a void. It creates a void in communication. It creates a void in security. It creates a void in integrity. You have to do your best to trust your leadership, but that doesn't mean that people aren't going to make mistakes, right? You have to do your best to know that they had your best interest at heart. All right? They're trying to develop you as a leader. And they can make mistakes too. So you learn from it, they learn from it, and you move forward. And communication is very important in that too. All right. How can you build trust with your peers and fellow airmen? Oh, okay, so this is a big one. Peers and fellow airmen. So first and foremost, I think it depends on the rank that you're at, right? So a lot of you guys have inherent trust in me because I'm a technical sergeant. And I'm supposed to be able to perform at a certain level that you expect, right? But as an airman, your level of leadership a lot of times is followership, right? As an airman, your level of leadership is showing how well you can adhere to standards, policies, customs, and courtesies. And because of that, your leadership is by example. So learn, do, teach, but teach by example. And you have to earn your fellow airmen's trust, right? I've seen a lot of stuff down in the dormitory where we put airmen leaders in positions, right? I keep saying right a lot. Sorry about that, guys. Where we put airmen leaders in positions of leadership. Obviously, we select that individual for whatever reason, and we say, hey, look, you're going to be an airman leader, and I need you to go to your fellow peers. A lot of times they're the same rank, and I need you to tell them what to do. And that's hard for some people. Because while you're sitting in the crowd, you're saying, why is that guy? What is it about that guy that says that he, even though we're the same rank, can tell me what to do? That's difficult. It's difficult. So what I'd ask you to do is, just like once you make NCO, you're going to be leading airmen. As I'd ask you to be the airman that you want to lead, which means allowing people to make mistakes, which means allowing people to grow, and it also means communicating and holding members accountable when they do make a mistake, right? So you got to try and see those people in those positions. For some reason, whatever MTL, flight chief, line MTL, whoever it is, group MTL, sees something in that airman and that airman has conducted themselves in a way that warrants them to have a rope, or whatever position that you're in. We can use this in any position, right? They've been placed in a position above you. So as a group MTL, as a technical sergeant in a group MTL, I have a whole bunch of flight chiefs that are also technical sergeants, and I can ask them to do a multitude of things, and they may feel inclined to do that. And I'm hoping that they don't do that just because of my position. I'm hoping they do that because they trust me and they know that I have their best interests at heart, and my goal is to help support them. So you got to build that trust. Okay, so next question we're going to hit real quick. What do you see occurring at tech school that keeps you from trusting your peers? What are your peers letting their where are your peers letting their shields down? Ooh, man. So when I was at technical training, I had a whole bunch of peers around me, obviously, right? And let's say it keeps you from trusting. There's a lot of stuff. A lot of people brought their civilian lives into their military career. And then for me, when I joined the military, I joined at the age of 21. And I said, hey, look, this is the thing that I want to be good at. This is what I want to do. And because of that, there was a lot of value in the military immediately. It wasn't just a paycheck for me. It was a lifestyle. It was something that I wanted to do well at. And a lot of people see that, and there's always going to be people who, when you care about something and you're making a lot of effort in it and you're doing what you think is right, a lot of people may see that in a different way. They can see it as brown nosing, as sucking up, as doing whatever. They can see that as in a whole bunch of different lights. And you gotta let that stuff slide and let it go, right? And those people who don't care as much as you, they could ridicule you, they could do whatever. They could just leave you alone too, or they could support you. So when I was in technical training, it was frustrating to me why a lot of people didn't necessarily take the training that was given and take it more seriously. So for firefighting, obviously, there's a lot of techniques and standards and things that we learn to make sure that we mitigate the fire, or that we protect the life, or we protect our fellow airmen by doing things this way. And when people didn't necessarily care about that as much, it was very difficult for me. But as an airman, what I really wanted to do was I would get frustrated and be like, why are you guys acting this way? Why are you guys doing this way? It's honestly, it's because their level of care, they didn't have that same level of commitment that I had. And that's okay. It really is. As long as they're performing to standards, right? It's okay that they don't have that same level of commitment as you, but you as the leader, you have to help try and build that level of commitment in them. And as an airman, that's going to be by action. It's not necessarily going to be by you ordering somebody to do something, or having the positional authority to reprimand or any of that stuff. It's really going to be by you performing at a level that you think is appropriate, that helps set that example for those peers around you. So, where are your peers letting their shields down? That was usually in personal environments, right? That was when I built a friendship with somebody. And that's where they kind of told me their story and figured out why and what they were doing. And then I learned more about them and why they did or did not care about whatever it was. And that helped me relate to them, and it helped me. And then they learned more about me and why I cared about it. And that helped them relate to the mission as well, right? All right, last question that we're going to go over. What are your peers doing that reinforce trust? What are your peers holding? Where are your peers holding their shield well to protect the person fighting next to them? What are your peers doing that reinforce trust? So right now, my peers are adhering to the standards that our squadron leadership and group leadership and wing leadership have made that say, hey, stay at home. They really are. And with that, a lot of people in my unit right now are still performing. And that's difficult with all the network connectivity issues and everything like that. There's people in watching this stream right now that are part of that aren't airmen in training. They're just watching the stream to support this stream. And that right there is a big deal. I got leadership doing that. I have peers doing that. I got airmen in training doing that. And that's really valuable, right? That helps support me and reinforce the trust that I have with my peers. And a lot of times, you know what they're doing in these times of adversity, in these times of restricted movement and stay at home and restriction of all that good stuff, and this pandemic that we have going on, they're doing their jobs. right? I was just talking to one of our NCOs yesterday, Sergeant Cameron, and he told me that he went into work. He had to, mandatory, right? He had to go into work to complete his mission, and he got 85 sets of orders done in one day. 85 sets of orders. I mean, that's pretty good, right? So he did all the prep work to the best of his ability prior to coming into work throughout those days, and then he went in and he actually completed those 85 sets of orders. How awesome is that to go through and accomplish that amount of work in a day? I think that's great. So how does trust contribute to the identity of airmanship? So we went over these. Really what it is you have to be able to trust your peers, right? I have to be able to trust my peers. I have to be able to trust my subordinates. I have to be able to trust my leadership that they have my best interests at heart. And if they do, then it's a lot easier for me to adhere to whatever policy, standards, customs, courtesies, anything that my leadership says, hey, look, I want you to do this, right? And I'm thinking, man, why are we doing that? It doesn't really make sense to me, but they might have a reason that I'm not aware of. And because I trust them, I know that that person has my best interests at heart, that cares about me as an airman, and cares about the mission. Now I can do my job without having to second guess or question what the order is. So, awesome. We talked a lot about trust. Let's watch that trust video real quick, okay? Before we end the stream. Oh, here, let's pull up the larger one. There we go.
The newspapers called us fly girls, like it was cute. It was okay. They called the men fly boys. But the message was pretty clear. There were people out there that didn't believe we could do it. We had to prove ourselves. Here's the thing of it though. We all have to prove ourselves. When your country takes a leap of faith, you have to take that same leap. They've placed their trust in you. In the Air Force, nobody will ever give you a job they wonder if you can do. They give you jobs they expect you to do. For most people, trust is something you build up to. For an airman, trust is where you start. Trust in your ability, trust in your commitment, trust in your loyalty. To have someone's back and know that they have yours. To be someone's wingman. You look into the eyes of someone staring back at you, just as scared as you are. You don't see fear. You see a bond. There will never be a moment when you are more connected to another human being than the moment you realize your lives are in each other's hands. Whether you ever see combat or not, you'll see that bond. You will rise to the faith that others have in you. Faith is a home for courage. Belief gives us strength. Trust carries us forward. We weren't just those first women to fly. We were the women after, and the women after that. We were every man and every woman that America ever believed in, and our enemies ever fought. And we were living proof that it is a sad, sad mistake indeed to ever underestimate an airman. This is our Air Force. You are a part of it now. We're trusting you with our country. We trust you with our Constitution. We trust you with our flag, and we trust you with our lives. No one questions your courage. They count on it. No one doubts your commitment. They depend on it. No one is challenging you to prove them wrong. We're trusting you to prove us right. Aim high, Airmen.
Yeah, no one doubts your commitment, right? No one doubts your courage. We trust that you have it. We trust that you have commitment. We trust that you have courage so that when we need it, we can use it. I mean, whew, that's awesome. All right, guys, it is almost 10 o'clock right now. Whoa, we're about like a minute away. I want to open the floor up for questions. Any of you guys that are in chat, feel free to ask any questions right now. I'll stay on a little bit longer. And then we can kind of press forward with that. Other than that, what I'm going to do is we're going to make a slight adjustment to the stream. And what I mean by a slight adjustment is just an addition to. So on Thursday at 1800, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, we're going to add another stream. And it's just going to either be an Airmanship 200 topic or it's going to be a professional development topic. With that, we're hoping that we can kind of get a higher level of viewership. I can hit more airmen in technical training, and we can help develop them as they go through this restriction of movement and can't go off base, all that good stuff. So please tell your friends, tell your peers that this upcoming Thursday, right, at 6 p.m., probably for a minimum of an hour, potentially longer, we're going to go over a professional development topic, and we will move forward and continue to try and get higher viewership so that we can make a bigger impact on the Air Force. Other than that, guys, we talked about trust. We talked about how important it is for you to have trust in your leadership, your peers, and your subordinates. We talked about how we can, how we deal with individuals who, when there's a break in trust or if there's an issue like that, right? We got to have our communication. We got to make sure that we allow people to make mistakes, and we have to forgive ourselves if we do make mistakes too, right? So, hey, chat, if you have any questions, please let me know. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12. We have like 13 people in chat right now. We had more people earlier. So if you have questions, general questions, anything at all right now, we normally would try to go into question categories, but with the limited personnel that we have, just ask away. We'll stay on for a little bit longer, and this Thursday we'll have an additional stream. Other than that, thank you guys very much for showing up, talking to me about trust and suffering through this video. I really appreciate it, guys. We're gonna do great things. Let's go ahead. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put on a fancy little video. Let's go to large broadcaster. We'll move display and add that. So if you got any questions, put them up in chat. Otherwise, thanks a bunch, guys. Appreciate it.
If tomorrow all the things were gone I'd worked for all my life, and I had to start again with just my children and my wife. I thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And
So I love how kind of corny this song is, but it's good. You know what I mean? For those of you guys who've seen like the montages of videos, it's just it's good. I like it.
God bless the USA. From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston and New York to LA. Well, there's pride in every American heart, and it's time we stand and say that I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free.
Thank you, Jay, Cannon Air Force Base, for showing up. Appreciate it, man. Or woman.
'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
My dearest son, it's almost June. I hope this letter catches up with you and finds you well. It's been dry, but they're calling for rain, and everything's the same old same in Johnsonville. Your stubborn old daddy ain't said too much, but I'm sure you know he sends his love. And she goes on in a letter from home. I hold it up and show my buddies like we ain't scared and our boots ain't muddy, and they all laugh like there's something funny about the way I talk when I say mama sends her best, y'all. I fold it up and put it in my shirt, pick up my gun and get back to work. And it keeps me driving on, waiting on letters from home. My dearest love, it's almost dawn. I've been lying here all night long, wondering where you might be. I saw your mama and I showed her the ring. Man on a television said something, so I couldn't sleep. But I'll be alright, I'm just missing you. And this is me kissing you. X's and O's in a letter from home. I hold it up and show my buddies like we ain't scared and our boots ain't muddy, and they all laugh 'cause she calls me honey, but they take it hard 'cause I don't read the good part. I fold it up and put it in my shirt, pick up my